Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about how to change out spark plugs. This is a 04 F150 with a 4.6 liter. This is a V8. The tools you're going to need to do this job is going to be a torque wrench, a spark plug socket, some extensions like this, some swivels. I'm using a quarter drive ratchet with a long extension with a quarter drive swivel and a 7mm socket. You're going to need an 8mm socket. The 8mm socket is for taking off the power steering pump to get that bracket out of the way. The power steering fluid reservoir, not the pump, but get that bracket out of the way to get to that one spark plug. Now before I take and put spark plugs in, what I like to do is I like to go through and gap on my spark plugs. So you're going to need to get a little gapping tool, okay? And the way this works is it's thin right here, and as you turn it, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. Now the specs for this truck, I looked up online, was 52 to 56 thousandths. So if you look on here, I take and I don't know if you can see or not. You see there's some numbers on there. Anyways, I put it right here and I take it, turn it around this way. I keep turning it, and what it's doing is spreading open that gap. Okay, I'm at 55 thousandths. The gap of your spark plug is right here. See if I can zoom in on that a little bit. Right there. That's the gap for your spark plug. That's very important. If this gap is closed, then this spark will not ignite your air-fuel mixture. If it's got too much of a gap, the spark won't jump the gap and it will not ignite your air-fuel mixture. This will result in a misfire condition. The second thing you're going to need to do is get yourself a little bit of anti-seize, okay? You're going to put a little bit of anti-seize right here on the threads. And then I like to lay my spark plugs up here on the cowl panel where they're out of the way. Alright, so now I've gapped my spark plugs, 52, 56 thousandths, and my torque spec is 13 foot-pounds. So I went ahead and set up my torque wrench for 13 foot-pounds for when I install it. Alright, like most modern vehicles, this is a COP, which is coil over plug. Coil over plug. It's got a little 7mm head bolt. And the reason I'm using a quarter drive right here, not a 3/8, is since this quarter drive is a little bit smaller in diameter, it can fit in there a little easier. So I take this bolt out. Take that bolt out. I'm going to set it up here. Okay? Now, this right here is your coil pack. This took the place of the distributor of older vehicles. Less moving parts. A little more, and it's more efficient. So that's why they did that. So, here's your coil pack. I'm not going to unplug it. I'm just going to lay it to the side. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to get my swivel and my spark plug socket. Now, I was always told by automotive instructors not to use power tools to remove spark plugs. But if you ask anybody that's ever removed a spark plug on a Ford 3-valve V8 engine, they're going to tell you that if you try to do it by hand, you're going to probably break every one of them off. So you got to use the impact gun. I will not use this to put it back in, but I personally don't have a problem taking spark plugs out with one of these. The reason why, this is a 5/8 spark plug socket, and the reason why I like using, you want to use spark plug sockets, because this actually holds the spark plug in there because it's got a little rubber grommet in there. And that's what goes around here on this spark plug, okay? If you look, these spark plugs are overdue because that gap right here, if you can see, that's a lot of gap, okay? These are definitely due. One thing I like to do too is just compare the spark plugs, make sure they look at least similar to each other. Make sure they're not too long, and I mean just kind of eyeball it. I'm going to take the old spark plug and I'm going to sit over here. And I want to take my new spark plug, put in my spark plug socket. Now, I will not be using power tools when installing. You do not want to do that. I'm going to get this installed by hand, twist everything in there, make sure it doesn't cross thread. Get your torque wrench on here. And listen for that click sound. Hear it? Okay, there it is. Alright. Make sure you get your spark plug socket back out of there. If it sticks in there and you can't get it out, you're going to have to get a pair of needle nose or something and grab it out of there. Alright. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get me some dielectric grease. I don't know any auto manufacturer that doesn't recommend putting dielectric grease on their spark plug wires or the coil packs. Alright, put this in here. Find my bolt. Started by hand. Okay, snug that down, and that's how you replace a spark plug. Now I'm going to go on and do the rest. It's all the same procedure on how you do it for every spark plug on here. As it gets farther back in there, obviously it's going to get harder to work on. Okay? On this side, what I need to do is take this bracket off, and then I should be able to get to all of them back this way. Now, you are going to probably need some different swivels and different extensions for getting those back ones. You know, I've had to do something like this before, basically where I put an extension, a swivel, and another extension to get back into some places. You just got to do what you got to do to get it done. Another thing I'll tell you is, this is a spark plug socket right here, and this is a little bit different one. I kind of like this one a little bit better in some ways. It's got this little metal clip in there, and that little metal clip holds the spark plug just like that. Because what happens is, with the rubber spark plugs, they get oil on them and saturate it, and then the piece of rubber falls out. So that's what I don't like about them. Alrighty. So on a spark plug, you got to make sure you have it gapped correctly. You got to look at the specs and make sure it's gapped. You're going to want to put some anti-seize on the threads, so that way the next person taking it out, hopefully they have an easier time taking it out. Another thing is, when on spark plugs, especially that one I dropped, this right here is made of porcelain, just like in your house, okay? And the porcelain, if you think about it, take the back of a toilet off and you drop on the floor, it's going to shatter. Same thing with here. Sometimes spark plugs will crack. They'll break, whether by dropping or just by normal fatigue, and the spark will come through that porcelain and go to the nearest ground. So I like to make sure I check all my porcelain, make sure they're not cracked, check your gap,